Welcome to the meeting of the Grandville City Council. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask Marcy to call the roll, please.
Councilmember Grandville.
Present.
Merringa.
Present.
Norhuck.
Here.
Steenstra.
Here.
Truce.
Here.
Vanderwall.
Here.
And Mayor Mas.
Here. Well, tonight, Councilmember Paul Truce will be giving the invocation, so if you wish, I'd invite you to stand for that, and we're going to follow that with a pledge of allegiance.
Please pray with me. Gracious God, thank you. Thank you for the many blessings you have poured down upon this community and upon all of us. Thank you for everyone in this room. We pray tonight for enlightenment, for discernment, for unity, of purpose, for unity amongst the council, unite our will with your will, we pray. Protect those, especially who are protective of us, our public safety officers. We pray all these things in your great name. Amen.
Amen.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate it very much. Well, we've got a full house tonight, so nobody needs to be excused, so that's great. You have before you the agenda for tonight's meeting. Is there a motion to approve that agenda?
So moved. Support.
Motion and support. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say yes. Yes.
Yes.
Any opposition, please say no. Great. We also have minutes from our last meeting, April 28th. Had a chance to look at those. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Motion?
Support.
Support. Any discussion, questions? If not, all those in favor of approving those minutes, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposition, please say no. Great, time approval of the bills, presentation of the bills. Griffin, anything you'd like to point out before we open it up for questions?
Absolutely, thank you. Like normal, I'll point out a couple that stood out to me for this meeting, and I'm happy to answer any questions you all may have about any others. I'm going to start with the pointing out of one that the vendor name is City Treasurer. This is the City of Grand Rapids City Treasurer. That payment in the amount of $10,373 is for our periodic traffic signal maintenance that we partner with the City of Grand Rapids for. A few down, we have Georgetown Construction Co. This is a vendor we're probably relatively familiar with. They did the 36th Street project last fall. That is a progress payment in the amount of $229,293. Progress related to the water main replacement projects underway on 31st and Wallace. Midwest Sign Company has an invoice in the amount of $15,969. This is the final payment for the gateway sign at Wilson and 28th. Hopefully you all have had an opportunity to see it. I think it looks quite nice. There is still some additional landscaping and electrical work that needs to take place to finish up that project, but that's what Midwest Sign is. We have Pitney Bowes Bank Inc., an invoice in the amount of $3,000. I didn't recognize this vendor, but it's actually one that we see quite regularly, just in relatively small amounts. That is a refill of our general office postage machine, so nothing that exciting. And then lastly, Red Mill Properties LLC in the amount of $10,000. This was one of the DEA's facade grant reimbursements for this year. That one specifically is for the property at 3140 Red Mill. So those are the ones I have got to highlight this evening. It's a relatively smaller check register than what we see normal, and about 54% of that is related to that Georgetown construction project coming out of the water.
Any questions for Griffin on any of the bills or comments? If not, is there a motion to approve the bills tonight in the amount of $457,406.11?
Support.
Motion support. Any other questions, comments? Marcy, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Merringa,
Yes.
Nordhook.
Yes.
Steenstra.
Yes.
Truce.
Yes.
Vanderwall.
Yes.
Gelderlos.
Yes.
And Mayor Mas.
Yes. Next on the agenda is annual Kent District Library Presentation 2024 Annual Report. I see we have a few friends from the library here.
Yes.
So, thank you, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lots of good things are happening over there.
Yes. So I always tell it's spring in Grandville. Not only the green, but the city sweepers come around. So, I'm still grateful for the repavement on my street, Barrett South. It's still nice and crack-free, and now it's polished and beautiful. So, thank you. Doesn't take much to keep me happy, but no, it's been another great year. Library. I spent a month or so ago. We did seed library distribution. So I joined the volunteers there, and that was a lot of fun. Although I couldn't tell you what seeds we had, but they were so tiny that I had my glasses on, and I could have used a magnifying glass too, because we were supposed to put between 10 and 15. I had no idea what 10 and 15 looked like. It just was this, puddle of little grains. But it was great to see all the volunteers come out and do that, and the involvement that we have with the Friends of the Library and the other activities. So really great stuff. As always, we really appreciate the partnership and everything with all of you. And a special thanks, Justin. I think this might be the last time I talked to you in this chair. It's been a very pleasurable experience having you on the board. We appreciate, just as a citizen, thank you for everything that you've done. Thank you all, but appreciate it and wish you the best. So with that, enough of me. I never even, you guys know me by now, but I'm Pete Dykeis, your trustee. Probably should have came first, but anyway. Lance, our director, give you more details.
Great.
Not many more details, just a few more details. Hi, my name is Lance Warner. I'm the director of the Kent District Library, and it's wonderful to be here with you this evening. I want to thank you for your partnership, and everything that happens at KDL couldn't happen without the partnership of the municipalities and the support of the municipalities. I also know that public service isn't easy, and I appreciate all of your work around public service. And I especially want to thank you, Justin, for everything that you've done in your role as a board member, and I think you've been here as long as I've been here almost, yeah. Yeah, so it's great. I'll miss you, but anyway, good luck in all your future endeavors. So 2024 was a big year for us. We won the national medal from the IMLS, and then we actually received $250,000 from an award we won the previous year, the Klein Foundation Award. We distributed out most of that amount to some ongoing projects that we had in the jurisdictional service area. But the thing that I'm most excited about is we started a fund for a scholarship, and we just actually awarded 2 scholarships. One of the scholarships went to a traditional student, and one of them went to a non-traditional student. So we're happy to help people launch their lives. Overall, in 2024, our metrics are up across the board. Our circulation was up, visits were up dramatically. We served 23,000 meals during our summer food program. Programming attendance up, and our library cards are ticking up. So kind of up across the board. Ebooks continue to be a very popular item in our collection. We had over 1.9 million circulations. So making people happy. And again, it's always a pleasure to come and see everybody, and really appreciate your support. And with that, I'll turn it over to the big star of the show, Josh. And Josh, where's Eric?
Eric is on his delayed honeymoon.
Oh, good for Eric.
Costa Rica, not here. Although it might be warmer here, yeah. So yeah, he's just having a little more fun than the rest of us. I'll start out with seconding just general thanks to the board. I always appreciate joining you. You're also welcoming every time. I'll second the special thanks to Justin and Tyon. You're done as well, right, Paul?
Yeah, right.
So, or in a couple of months. So thank you to both of you. You've always been a big support to the library. In addition to thanks to you guys, as usual, thanks to the city. We really have it lucky here in Grandville. The relationship we have with the city between Griffin, all department heads, we're just treated in a way that isn't always the case for the relationship in all of our branches. So I appreciate that. It's been a good year, obviously for KDL, but for Grandville specifically. Last year at Grandville alone, our circ was up 2.2%, and it's 4.5% up so far this year. 19% increase on our visitor count, and that trend is continuing so far this year. Maybe not quite as high, but still going up. And a 40% increase in our program attendees last year, for a total of 28,609 people, and that seems to be going up too. So I think this year we may break 30,000 program attendees. So it is, it's been a lot of fun. But if ever you're in there and it's loud and chaotic, that's why all the people are there. Some highlights, some of the reasons they've been coming. One is a thank you to the library board here. The monies that they raise every year selling, I think this year it was selling ornaments or something at the Christmas festival. They used to pay to add some art rails on either side of the fireplace in the library, and we have Rivertown Artists Guild stocking that with new art for us every quarter, every couple of months. And that's been really popular so far. They had a good time joining us for the Art and Chocolate Walk and doing some demos and some things along with all the other things going on that night. Another highlight in January this year, we had a huge Lego program on a Saturday, which drew about 450 people, where we were celebrating all things Lego. And for about 2 weeks on either end of that, we had a really cool display that was put on, I believe it was the West Michigan Lego Users Group or something like that. It's WWM, I can't remember the acronym exactly, but they put that on for us, and there was this giant, maybe 10 by 20 foot-ish display in the library. I know Justin saw it. I don't know if anybody else was in there. Just absolutely incredible. So we had probably a few thousand people over those 2 weeks just come in to check that out. We were really, really excited to get back into hosting an author visit at the branch level. You may remember we used to do a one book community at the branch level years ago. That kind of ended with COVID. We had one or two challenges where an author had to back out on us. And then we started our big system-wide one. But we jumped back in this year and partnered with Grandville Schools and Grandville Christian, and we were able to bring in picture book illustrator Cherry Moe, who wrote and illustrated a book called Home in a Lunchbox, and was the Caldecott Honor Award winner this year. And so she came in and saw all of the, I believe, 3rd and 4th grades at Grandville's public schools, and maybe 1st through 5th, kindergarten through 5th at Grandville Christian, and it was just an absolute blast. So if you have kids there or know of any, ask them about it. They'll probably sing praises of Cherry and her incredible book. And right now we're just gearing up for summer. We're excited for hopefully being the #1 branch again for Summer Wonder visitors. So with that, I'll end with a little patron comments or two and then answer any questions. But we do a little survey of any patrons that weren't in there that we have their emails from every month. And I get a report with different comments, and here's a couple. We had one woman that reached out and said, I'm a senior and I need a lot of help. My family won't help me, but the employees of the library will. They're a blessing to me. And another person, the library is a great part of our lives and community. My kids ask to come often. They love to explore the books, the play areas, and love the little activities that are set up on the tables, especially the ones where they have to look around the library to find hidden animals, etc. And then finally, we had a woman in just the other day that worked with a staff member on renewing her cosmetology license. And she made a point to tell Amanda before she left that it's something she never would have been able to do without any help. She doesn't have the skills to use a computer, but needed her license renewed to keep working, and was just super thankful for that. And that's just kind of the day-to-day thing that our staff do, just because that's what people are coming in for. So with that, I think we're done, and we're happy to answer any questions you guys might have.
Questions for Josh? Thanks for all the fun programming you do, and
It's a good time.
it's kind of the center of the community.
Oh, I was going to say, I forgot to mention, I think maybe there's a flyer in your packet. If not, I can send it. But we are working, starting a couple months ago, with Versity to do blood drives, host blood drives in the library. And there's one coming up this weekend on Saturday. And they emailed today and said that they're still looking for sign-ups. So if any of you like to give blood or have people that you can recommend, send them in our way. They get a free scoop of custard from Culver's for donating this time. So.
Cheer for
Yeah, I know.
Thank you very much, and Janet, see you in the back too. Thank you for all that you do to help the library. Appreciate
Well,
that.
thank you for having us today.
I did forget.
You did.
I was going to say, I forget to mention, they funded the author visit, so thank you.
Yes. 98.6% of our earnings go to donations or to the library in support of the library.
You've raised a lot of money.
And we're having a
over the
book
years.
sale Saturday, a stuffer bag, $5, all you can get in the bag.
Give blood, buy books, right?
No, $5. It's $5 for a whole bag. We don't care if you put them under your arm. So, best deal in town.
Thank you. Thanks. Well, it's time for public comment. Anybody here would like to address the council? Just come on up to the podium, give us your name and your address, and tell us what you're thinking about tonight. Kyle, welcome.
I know it's spring, and it seems like on May 17th, there must be 25 events in this area. But we are also holding one as the Grandville Community Tree Project. We're actually going to work on the food forest lot for about an hour or so, and then we're going to eat fajitas and the mayor's chili, and we have some plant giveaways, and we actually are very fortunate to have a bee and tree arborist coming, and he's actually going to be bringing a observation hive and explaining how the bees benefit from the trees. We have also Jonathan Lewandowski, and he's a permaculture person, and he will be bringing like blueberry plants and goji berries and thimbleberries and things like that. Real fun stuff. He's a real exciting person to be around, so I think it'll be a great event if anybody can make it. We'd appreciate anybody that wants to come just out of curiosity, even just to see what we're doing.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Did you want to mention the mini grant too, because that's helping?
Oh,
on
thank
this
you
cool
very
project.
much for the mini grant that we were awarded so that we can actually put this event on, and we have enough funds to be able to cover things, and we can bring the neighborhood together and they can actually be involved. It's really exciting when I'm out there working on the lot that people stop and they want to know what's going on and what's happening, and people are stopping and saying, Mayor Moss sent out a lot of invitations, and we got our invitation, we'll be there. So it's pretty exciting. I think it'll be a fun thing, and funding like the grant really helps. So I appreciate all of you supporting it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kyle. I'll fire up the stove Saturday, get that chili going. Anybody else like to address the council? Just come on. Mike,
Just
welcome.
thanks for all your work on the budget, the numbers look great, and, yeah, thanks for serving.
Thank you. Anybody else like to address the council? Last chance. Okay, next item is public hearing on the budget. And I think before we open the public hearing, I think Griffin had a couple comments, and then Jane's got a presentation, and we'll open the public comment as well.
Fantastic, well, thank you. I'm pleased to be able to present the proposed fiscal year 25-26 financial plan. This is the result of months of work by our team, by the city council, and particularly by Finance Director Jane Sauerman. I want to express my sincere gratitude to her and to everyone who's contributed to this process. There are a lot of really exciting things happening in Grandville, and this budget was developed to help see them through. There's a significant amount of investment included in this document that will not only benefit the community now, but set it up to be successful for many years in the future. Our team is extremely mindful of its obligation to get the community the best value that it can for its tax dollars, to be responsible stewards of public resources, and ensure that Grandville remains a great place to live, work, and play. So to highlight the general fund, the few things I want to really point out that I think we should be proud of is this budget includes no millage rate increase. The proposed millage is 12.55 mils. That's the same as it was this last year. It maintains staffing levels, so we're not reducing staff positions. We're also not proposing any new positions. It includes a significant amount of notable one-time investments in our streets and our parks and our public facilities, and maintains a healthy fund balance of roughly 22%, which is above the council's policy of a minimum of 15% fund balance. I also would really like to highlight that this budget advances many of the city council's priorities that were identified during our strategic planning session in January. It continues notable investment in community events. It begins a phased city hall refresh that includes significant investment in physical security system upgrades. It includes the Mill Race Park improvements that I know we're all chomping at the bit to finally see through. It is a continuation of the road and bridge plan that was started last year, the implementation of the compensation and benefit study conducted earlier in the year. It explores some options to enhance our organization's communication and much, much more. We also spent considerable time during this budgeting process preparing to address the needs to increase our utility rates. Specific recommendations were made by the city's rate consultant during budget workshop number 2, and these are among the most significant proposals in the fiscal year 25-26 financial plan, and will ensure that our municipal water rates reflect the increases in wholesale water costs from the city of Wyoming, remain competitive for residents, support a future bond issue for many local water infrastructure improvements, and provide long-term sustainability for our system. So as outlined in the city charter, developing the budget, overseeing its implementation, and being accountable for the overall financial condition of the city of Grandville are some of the most critical tasks assigned to me as the city manager. As this is my first budget process with the city of Grandville, I want to express my appreciation to all of you and to our team for their patience and support as I got my feet under me. While many challenges remain, including pending tax appeals, uncertainty around state road funding legislation, and broader economic factors, I am confident that we're in a good place. So to highlight the few next steps, this evening we have the finance director to give an overview of the specifics of our budget. We'll conduct the public hearing. Next Monday, May 19th, the budget will be brought back along with the water and sewer rates, an updated fee schedule, and a proposed escrow policy for consideration of adoption. And then the final step of any budget process is the adoption of any necessary budget amendments for this ongoing fiscal year, which I anticipate will be brought before you all at the last meeting of the fiscal year, June 23. So with that, I want to thank you again for the opportunity to be part of this process, to serve the city of Grandville, and I really look forward to another productive, impactful, and fulfilling year with this proposed financial plan.
Jane?
Thank you. This is not my first budget in front of all of you, but I'm hoping that this presentation is enlightening for those that came for the public hearing, because you've all heard me say this stuff for about the last 3 months. First, just a quick overview. Griffin hit a lot of the highlights that are in this particular presentation. I just draw your attention to some of the things. Again, proposed millage rate at 12.55, no change. That is what this budget, the general fund budget, is based on. You can see here that we have, for revenues, we're projecting 11.6 million in total through property tax revenue. Of that, 1.4 million is dedicated to street funding, and then our debt service requirement is $262,550 for year 25-26. Our property taxable values increased by the state this year at 3.1%. Our increase overall is 3.9%. Some of the additional taxable value can be mostly attributed to the cost of living, with minimal increases due to some new construction. But this number also includes the taxable value assumption for the recently discussed mall appeals. So this has been adjusted. State shared revenue is coming in at right around 1.85 million. That is not exactly what's being reported on their website. I like to round down for them because they're not all that great with following through. So it does show an increase of $100,000 over this year, but fingers crossed that will only continue to go up. Court and probation expense is still split with Walker, no change, 60% Walker, 40% Grandville, and we've budgeted an additional $20,000 more for court and probation revenue this year than prior years. Just so you know, the state shared revenue breakdown, statutory is 92,000 and constitutional is 1.75 million. Our millage comparison, we've talked about this at the budget workshop. City of Grandville remains in the bottom half of the millage rates levied. It's also prudent to note that 6 of the 8 units shown currently levy their full charter millage rate, and many of these units needed to vote additional millages for specific needs because they were at their cap. Property tax breakdown. This is something we like to show members of our citizenry so they can get an idea of what an average residential taxable value of $105,000 looks like in real-time dollars. Again, these are millage rates that have not yet been certified through the L4029. These are based on millage rates from the 2024 tax roll. Average residential taxpayer pays the City of Grandville $1,318 in annual taxes. The dollars, again, fund all aspects of the general fund: police, fire, parks, rec, library, sidewalks, streets, elections, planning, code enforcement, community events, etc. With emphasis on streets, because you all remember last year we raised the millage rate to specifically dedicate to our street infrastructure. So I just want to reiterate that this particular slide is specific to parcels with a primary residence exemption, so you don't see any of the school operating money in this particular breakdown. The total tax dollar allocation, again, based on an average home, taxable value of $105,000. The average residential property taxpayer pays approximately $4,300 per year, and this graph shows how it's allocated. City receives only 25% of the total taxes levied. General fund revenue by source. This breaks down all of the revenue that we receive from all of the different categories. Property taxes and state revenue sharing still account for roughly 87% of our general fund budget. Other revenue sources, which is that little light blue area that looks like a miscellaneous sort of catch-all. In there is revenue for things like special assessments, investment income and rentals, other revenue, which may include donations, reimbursements, things like that don't fall into one of those other categories. The comparative expenditure by category. I like to show this just to get an idea of where the tax dollars go. We are a community-facing organization, which means we have a lot of people, we spend a lot of money on human capital. That is pretty indicative across the board of most public units. You can see personnel services went up a little bit in percentage from last year. That has a lot to do with the fact that capital outlay went down significantly. So that is, it skews the percentages when one category goes down. And that also is an indicator of the cost and class and comp study, along with a COLA increase for administrative staffing. I just want to point out that capital outlay piece is general fund only. It does not include any street improvements. Those are accounted for in major and local streets. General fund operating expenditure highlights. I think the biggest one this year, we've got a pretty business as usual budget, but it's personnel. We've got the implementation of the class and comp study that's headed our way. That increase for administrative wages shows $175,000 just to bring administrative wages into a current market rate position. 3.5% COLA for administrative wages. That's an increase of $225,000 in wages and $90,000 in fringe benefits. We also have a contractual wage increase, and it's anywhere between 3 and 4% depending on the contract. We did get a little bit of a bump in the health insurance, PA 152. I don't know if you remember last year it wasn't even at 1%. This year we're at 2.9. Staying flat at the $770,000 MERS required contribution for pensions. The reason we can stay flat at that is because we are now into a position with our funding where we have a minimum amount due to MERS of $1.2 million a year, and this is the general fund portion. Other post-employment benefit costs, the state requires funding for employees hired after, like cash full funding after 6/30/18. That's roughly $80,000. Retiree health savings plan for new hires after 6/30/19. It's mostly admin and DPW. That's $32,000. And then just very few highlights this year. There's not really a lot changing from last year to this year. In building and grounds, we do have the physical security upgrades that Griffin alluded to, and year 1 of 3 for City Hall refresh. Human resources is a brand new cost function. There's really no material expenditure change from 24-25 to 25-26. It's just being called out as its own function or own expense category. Cemetery, we're looking to purchase a new columbarium, and Parks and Rec is up. Well, it's not up, it's the same, but Mill Race Park project, we think this will be the last year we have to budget for that. So just to hit a few of the highlights on the general fund post-workshop changes, so things that are different with these numbers than we first brought you with the March workshop. We had an increase to our monthly telephone line item in information technology of $8,000. We needed to add some appraisal services in the assessor's function, just due to all of the impending value changes or value appeals. Building and grounds, we had to increase DPW wages that weren't initially budgeted the first time around. Building maintenance and equipment and furniture for City Hall refresh, we bumped that up. We don't anticipate spending it all, but just to make sure we had all of the improvements covered. Police, there was, thank you to Chief Anglem. He pointed out that there was a request for an increase in part-time wages that was not originally brought to you. And the motor pool fund rentals, we discovered a math error in that. And so between those two, we had to increase the police cost function $260,000. Same with fire. It was brought to our attention that overtime wages were, we had under budgeted those. And then the last major change really that we had to that budget was in the area of property tax revenue. So I think Griffin passed out this handout to you. So what this does is this just basically outlines for you where we were with our first budget workshop in May. It was pre-border review, pre any mall settlement, and this is the number that the assessors, this was their dart throw number. It hasn't really changed that much, but it's changed enough so that we wanted to report to you that we're looking at roughly, I think, $230,000 less in property tax revenue due to the reduction in the taxable value. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to let us know. We'll kind of walk you through how we came up with that. General fund capital expenditures. You know, we did say that capital expenditures for the general fund are down over last year. This is mainly because of the no purchase of a fire truck this year, and the fire department renovations are done. So this is the outline for what we can expect for basically one-time infrastructure spends for this year. Roughly $400,000 in building and grounds for physical security, a new city sign, some improvements at the fire station, and some general O&M. And the building and grounds general O&M includes things like City Hall refresh, office furniture, community center, and a little more fire station improvements, carpet, things like that. I think we're also getting ready to welcome a new fire chief, so we want to make sure there's money in there for him, her, them. Election, precinct equipment, police department, $73,000, copy machine, flock cameras, forfeiture equipment. Parks is $733, mostly mill race at $650. General operation and maintenance for the parks include ball field upgrades, irrigation improvements, buck trail maintenance, and kayak launch maintenance. Fire department, I said we didn't have a truck purchase, but we have a truck fix. Fortunately, probably close to 100% of that will be covered by the insurance company. $250 of that, $1,000 of that we've already received this year and will be shown as revenue in this year's 24-25 budget. We anticipate getting another $100,000 next year. That's budgeted as revenue for next year. And then legacy equipment at almost $80,000, and then again the cemetery columbarium. Our projected fund balance, I know you guys always like to flip to this page and go, what's our number? Again, we went over this in the workshop. It's a little bit tighter. Our projected fund balance at the beginning of the year is a little bit more certain because when we brought you numbers in March, we only had expenditures through December 31. We've been able to project out another 3 months and kind of see the direction we're headed. So we are projected to have a $3.8 million fund balance at the end of the year, which equates to roughly 22%. 8.5% of total expenditures and other financing uses are for the transfers to the major and local streets for road improvements. So on to major and local streets. Does anybody have any questions about the general fund slides that we just went through? I know a lot of it's repeat, but in case something sparked your attention?
Just one.
Yeah.
The columbarium.
Yeah.
I thought that was in there. Do we not have money in the cemetery fund?
We don't have a cemetery fund.
We did before.
Well, it was part of the general fund. It was one of the 5 general funds that we had. So it was still all encompassed in the general fund as part of the budget. We don't have a separate cemetery fund.
When did that change? Because years back, we paid for the addition, so we bought that property on Wilson. Prairie Street that we tore down.
I would have to go back and look, but as far back as I have looked, there was no special revenue fund for a cemetery. It's always been part of the general fund numbers. I'm happy to go back and look further if you like, but we don't have a cemetery fund that we budget for. It's part of the general fund budget. All the revenue goes into the general fund from cemetery and is used to help
I
offset
don't want to
costs.
go back a ways, but it seemed like, the fees for grave opening and then burials and all of that went into a cemetery fund at one time. And that
Like a
fund-
perpetual maintenance fund that authorized that.
That's a trust fund that gets accounted for separately, but I haven't seen a trust, cemetery perpetual care trust fund in any of your financial statements as far back as I haven't gone back more than, 5 or 6 years, but
I mean, that is a good question.
That is a
I
really
mean,
good question.
We built that building, we tore down the chapel, we bought we bought out an antiquated gator or something, right? So I mean, those are good questions. I guess I'm curious too, what fund those came out of, so.
I'm gonna guess the general fund. But I'm happy to do some research and report back.
That's what it sounds like Randy's looking for, yeah.
Thank you.
Did you find it?
Well, there's a, apartment 567 is cemetery.
That's out of the general fund.
Yeah, I think that's what.
Yeah, that's the cost center for the cemetery. That's where we account for all the cemetery costs in the general fund is in 567.
That accepts revenue when there's fees that come in for. grave
The revenues
openings.
just go in as part of general fund revenues. That's an expenditure function category.
But that's where like maintenance and it looks like equipment and different things come out of there, so that's probably what you're thinking.
I'm happy to do some research and report back, but since I've been here, there's been no cemetery fund. So it's always been part of your general fund budget. On to major and local streets. Again, so a lot of this is repeat from our first budget workshop. We've got a scheduled interfund transfer of 1.1 million coming into major streets to help cover the capital projects cost of 1.32 million and signal upgrades of 720,000. Local streets, we've got an interfund transfer of 450,000 coming in to help fund capital projects of 940,000. The streets listed here are the streets that Charlie Sundblad has scheduled to be redone in 25-26. Also, in the next few years, as you all know, we have some important road projects that are slated to be completed, including several that are part of our water main replacement initiative, and those costs over the next, not including 25-26, over the next 3 budget years is going to be roughly $13 million. On to motor pool, we have $800,000 worth of capital purchases slated to be made in next year. I think we talked about this a little bit in our workshop number 2. Beyond this year, we have basically two more large pieces of equipment that need to be replaced, one next year, one the year after that. And then the capital budget for motor pool falls way off because we will be caught up, and then we'll start saving when we have to replace the next big piece of equipment. Clean water plant, we've got an increase to our commodity and ready to serve charges. Commodity charge in 24-25 is $323 or $3.23 per 1,000 gallons. That is we're showing a 9% increase in that rate to $3.52 for 1,000 gallons. Ready to serve charges for sewer fund is also going up 9% from $17.08 quarterly to $18.92 quarterly. An additional cost of $5.89 per quarter for an average bill with 15,000 gallons of use. Clean water plant major capital purchases. In operations, we've got the maintenance center is scheduled to start. Aeration system is scheduled to wrap. They're looking to purchase a new telehandler and a SCADA system. And then other operation and maintenance purchases of $560,000, and some of the things included in there are the flood inundation modeling, replacement of the programmable logic control, along with several smaller pieces of legacy equipment. And all of these are denoted in your capital improvement plan that you received from us earlier. On to the water fund. Water fund, we had a lot of conversation about this. We are asking for a 30% increase to offset the cost of Wyoming's increase, along with our own infrastructure plan that we have over the next 2.5 to 3 years, which includes the possibility of a bond issue. Our increase for commodity and ready to serve charges, we're going from $3.35 per 1,000 gallons to $4.35 per 1,000 gallons. Ready to serve charge from $24.60 quarterly to $32 quarterly for an additional cost of $22.40 per quarter for an average bill with 15,000 gallons of usage. These are the numbers that were presented to you from our rate study that we had done. Major capital projects for next year, we just have one main project that we are hoping to get started and completed within next fiscal year, and that's our meter replacements. We talked a little bit about this, how the majority of the meters that are out there are they've still aged, they're still not running to accuracy, and we're trying to move us into the future, get away from actual human meter reading. There's so many things that we're going to be able to do as an organization with this meter replacement. And then again, we're hoping to bond for water main replacement projects, and we need to start that as soon as possible once you guys feel like this is the direction that you want to go. Comparable utility rates, this is my favorite chart, it's so pretty. You can still see, this one thing I want to point out is, we said this before, current rates for everyone but us. So these rates have not yet been increased for 25-26 for any of the units listed here. Those rates aren't available. The majority of them are also going through their own rate study right now. I also want to remind you that Wyoming rates include a millage rate for utility capital improvements, and when calculated on an average home, it adds roughly $50 a quarter to their bill. And so, just to note, within this depicted group, the city's utility rates still remain among the lowest of our equal counterparts. And that is it for me. So I'm happy to take any questions or sit down.
Questions for Jane? Great. Great presentation, and thanks for shepherding the whole process.
Yeah,
again this year.
my pleasure.
Appreciate it. All right, it's time for the public hearing on the budget. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Motion? Support. And support. All those in favor of opening the public hearing on the budget, please say yes.
Yes.
In the opposition, please say no. Great, now time for public. Anybody in the public like to comment on tonight's budget, proposed budget, or the presentation, or any questions, any comments? No one else speak at once? All right, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Motion?
Support.
And support. All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
In the opposition, please say no. Great. All right, thanks, Jane. Thanks for the great presentation.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
could I, under council communications or petitions, just share my perspective on the budget?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much. So as we know, we last year looked at raising the millage rate 1.5, and I've communicated multiple times that was a difficult vote for me, but I did it because based on the projections, the desire to invest in our roads and infrastructure, there was a clear need for that. After we did that, we as a council passed a resolution, and in that resolution it said, the last bullet point, that should the city council determine that progress on street conditions and projects included on the 5-year capital plan no longer require the continuous level of increased resources, it will deliberate to consider a reduction in the millage rate to match this need at that time. And so as I'm looking at the budget, some things stick out to me. The fund balance of 22% is in excess of what we require, which is a good thing, and it's done with some intentionality because we are banking funds to invest in infrastructure. But when we had our audit, I think the 22% is still maybe a little bit conservative, which is good, to budget, but we'll see how that ends up. Everything we do is rooted in projections, and when we raised the millage, we did so rooted in projections, but some things have changed since those projections. We received a grant from the Bridge Council for 80% of the Chicago Drive Bridge. Many of the bridges that are listed on here as bridge replacement have been replaced as bridge rehabilitation instead of bridge replacement, which is good news because that saves us money. We have seen projects come under budget, and I advocated when we saw the last big project come under budget, maybe instead of saying what more can we do, we might consider what can we do for the residents to provide some relief, because we are looking at increased rates on water and sewer. And with the price of everything, the way that it is, people are feeling that pinch. And we heard that in the budget session when the DDA director shared the difficulties and even getting donations for things because people are feeling increased pinch. So I think we passed a resolution that said if it was not necessary, we would consider a reduction. I'm not sure that I'm there yet to say that it is necessary, but I do want to explore it. And in years past, we would have Tammy run some simulations for us and say, if you did reduce the millage by this amount, this is what would happen. And so I am requesting that we do that, not to give Jane more work. I know you've done a lot of work. All of you have done a tremendous amount of work, and I really appreciate that. But the spirit of that resolution does ask us to consider that if it is no longer required, and I don't think we can say it's no longer required unless we explore it. And so I would like to at least explore it. So I would like to see a simulation where we look at the budget if there was a reduction of 0.25 mils or 0.5 mils. I think it offers relief to people who are feeling the pinch from the increased inflation, all that we have, and now we're looking at increased rates for water and sewer. So that's my hope, that we could at least take a look at that and see what that simulated budget would look like, and is it even feasible for us to do.
Good, appreciate those comments, thoughtful comments. Jane, that's something you can.
So, can I share?
Sure.
If that's okay. So, I really appreciated Justin giving me a heads up. He was gonna make some comments to this effect. Wasn't able to, I guess, dive as deeply into some numbers as may have been helpful, but I do have a few things to share that can at least maybe help inform some level of the discussion this evening, and ultimately, you know, have the city council decide what direction they'd like to give staff to go. So just broadly, what numbers I do have to share is a 0.25 millage reduction. So a quarter of a millage reduction would equate to roughly a reduction in general fund revenue of $232,300. And a 0.5 mil, so a half a mil millage reduction would equate to approximately $464,700 general fund revenue reduction. I obviously wasn't here going through last year's budget workshops that you all went through to go through the tough decision to ultimately decide to raise the millage, but I was able to go through some of the materials that were available and have at least a surface level conversation with Jane and Charlie. And my understanding is that the multi-year road plan that we put in place already includes spending down the existing fund balance closer to that 15% level. So should we reduce the millage further, we're not going to have that excess fund balance available to necessarily make that up. So in short, we're already going to be spending down the existing fund balance. So if we reduce revenue that we, at least at this point, are relying on for roads, the conversation we would have to have, and if it's the direction the council wants to go, we're happy to have, is gonna be likely needing to look at what projects need to be pushed or cut to make up for that difference in the immediate future. I do think one thing I'd encourage us to think a little bit about, and again, at the end of the day, it's you all as the elected officials' decision to make, but I guess a different perspective to think of is the more we can do now with the dollars we have available, the more benefit we're gonna bring in the long term as project costs only continue to go up. So if council decides we do want to see a millage reduction, we do want that level of relief or savings, or however we want to frame that to go to residents, I feel like it's my obligation as the manager to at least share in the long term. I think we're only gonna see increased costs for doing those same projects. My other hesitance is saving on these bridge renovations. Justin, I think you were absolutely correct. We're very fortunate that our initial estimates are not likely going to be as high as we thought. We also have been awarded a grant, but those savings, that grant dollars, those are going to be benefits that we're not gonna fully realize until those projects are underway in 2027. And like my understanding how we've handled grants in the past, until that grant revenue is received and realized, we have to budget as if we're needing to do that project on our own, or at least that's my understanding of how the organizations handled it in the past. So I'd be hesitant to reduce a millage banking on some of those things, largely with the risk that I see in kind of larger macroeconomic factors related to steel and other construction materials and some dramatic changes that we can see. So with all that being said, you know, my recommendation would still be to stay the course with the current plan, to revisit the millage rate as was contemplated by the resolution when we're further into implementing this 5-year road plan. At that point, I would anticipate we'll have a clearer picture, and at that time, we very well may have the opportunity to reduce or reallocate the millage. But also, given the importance of this, hearing from Justin this evening, hearing from several of you at some of our budget workshops of definitely the sensitivity to our millage rate and the interest in exploring it. The other piece I would share is just given that importance and the limited amount of time available between this Monday, the 12th, and next Monday, the 19th, where council's going to be asked to adopt our upcoming year budget, we're limited in the time we have to evaluate and prepare these alternative scenarios. So is there any interest in committing, can motion, I mean, however we want, to do a fuller, deeper evaluation of potential millage reductions over the next year in preparation for fiscal year 26-27. With that extra year, we're gonna have another year of project progress. We'll have a clear picture on if we do ultimately move forward with a bond. We'll be at that year where we'll be able to get real when it comes to those bridge projects that are absolutely a big part of the assumptions made in the original road plan. We would just be in a stronger position to really be able to thoroughly discuss both the short and long-term implications as part of that upcoming budget process. So I'll throw that out there. Ultimately, we'll obviously do whatever the city council wants to do, but those are my, I guess, concerns as the city manager in terms of running these scenarios or doing a dive over the next week is, candidly, I don't know how good an information we're gonna be able to give you all in that timeline. And the last thing I want us to do is make a decision on incomplete information without having the full amount of time that I know you all would want to be able to evaluate that. So I don't know what kind of trade-offs there are there, but I'll leave it to the council.
Council, thoughts?
I would not be in favor of lowering the millage where we have it now. Ironically, I bumped into a former Grandville resident who now lives in Ottawa County, and she compared the roads in Ottawa County to the roads in Grandville. And I think our plan of fixing the roads and improving living here in Grandville, we've got a millage set, and I would not be in favor of reducing it.
Jane, how difficult, how time consuming would it be to kind of redo the page in the budget that just talks about fund balance? Because that's where I would head to.
So the fund balance won't change. Your fund balance will stay the same.
If
We will reduce the amount of operating transfers out into road funds, because we will do less projects in the road funds. So the fund balance for the general fund won't change. And the fund balance in your major and local streets funds won't change either, because they will have less revenue and less projects. You'll just spend less. So everything will remain static. The only difference is the number of roads that we can construct, that we can
okay, so
maintain.
I'm not sure I'm quite
So
understanding why does it
let me break it
have
down
to
for
stay
you.
static?
So let's say we reduce the millage by half. What is that, roughly $460,000?
Right.
So what we would do is we would reduce the revenue by $460,000. We would then reduce the amount of transfer out of the general fund into the road funds by $460,000. So they would have 460, probably would be locals, Charlie and I have talked, because we would do less local roads, because the majors are have-tos. So we would have $460,000 less going into local roads, and then we would have $460,000 less of expenditures for street construction.
That's
So-
only if we maintain a budget, a fund balance of 22% though, correct? If we
No.
were to accept that we're gonna lower our fund balance, we could pull some of that fund and redistribute it.
You could say, we want to give the road funds more than the millage that we've dedicated, because we've dedicated 1.5 mils to roads.
Yep.
So if you reduce that by half, now we're only dedicating 1 mil to roads, which means less money going out of the
Jane,
general.
let me jump in for a second. Justin, so to your point, that is a scenario. So you could say, we're gonna make up that difference this year. But part of this 5-year plan was to spread all of the needs of the road system over 5 years. We didn't necessarily do them in order of priority, for example. So the hesitance there would be, theoretically, you're right, and we could make it work this year where we don't reduce anything, but we would then get to a point when we got further into the road plan where these larger projects that we're relying on this money for, it could theoretically not be there. You're right, there's no way for me to know for sure, but we have some, again, kind of need tos and some want tos. Some of the need tos are in further years, and again, we will do the best we can with whatever money the city council wants to allocate. My fear would be some of these need tos in year 3, 4, and 5, we would almost need to reshuffle that whole CIP over a 5-year period if we're gonna see a millage reduction. And that, I think, is a more complicated than a 1-week ask when we have to start thinking about how water main projects come into play, if we end up bonding, if we don't bond, that changes the needs of some of these. And I'm sorry, I'm really not trying to overcomplicate this more than it needs to be either. So that's why, again, I wanna start with the short answer is, technically there is a way you could do that. But I don't wanna do that and not consider the consequences for year 3, 4, and 5 of the road plan.
And I guess my final response to that, and I understand what you're saying, but I think we started off saying if we get to the end of this year and we need to lower the millage, we'll know better at that time. There's nothing that would prohibit the council to bring it back up if the projections change as well over the next year. And it's like, okay, we did this reduction, now we have a clearer picture of things, the forecast that you've given is true, we need to go back up. There will be a majority of this council, even with Paul and I departing, that would have the votes to raise the millage back up if you get to that point. So that's why, to me, the answer was just given. Yes, we could move out of the general fund. We could cover that. We could offer residents a break this year. And then we could reassess, not we, because I won't be here, but you guys could reassess next year and make a change if you wanted to. And so that's why, I said my final comments. So I make a motion to ask the finance director to show us a simulation of the reduction of 0.25 and 0.5 mils.
Motion, is there support?
I'll support that. Support. I think it's helpful to have all the information available.
Okay, any other comments? Yeah.
That was a lot of information to take in, right? Griffin, that was a lot of very calculated information. Jane, that was a lot of calculated information. Justin, those were some very thoughtful comments. My takeaway was that we raised the millage to pay for roads, which I'm pleased to do, happy to do. I didn't realize that we were padding our general fund surplus and then spending it down. I thought we were just allocating into our fund balance overage, right? Was that?
So every year from that millage increase you guys did last year,
Yeah.
every dollar of that immediately goes to the road funds. We're actually transferring more than that. So that increase from last year is, it's not padding the fund balance.
Sure, but at some point we get to a fund balance pad.
At some point, so
Through
when
other
you get.
reductions in project costs and whatever. So, let me just finish my
Yeah, absolutely.
thoughts. Is that we're increasing this fund balance, which is great, right? Saving for the things that are coming. The fund balance is going from a 15 to a 22. It was 24, we're back to 22. Is the goal to spend out of that down, back to 15 every year? Am I making sense to anybody else, or am I off kilter?
So my understanding is your fund balance, if you were to look back 4 or 5 years ago, was like at 38, or I don't know if it was over 4. Your fund balance was much higher, and over the last several years, council has been strategically spending that fund balance down on these major capital projects. So part of the road plan relies on spending down existing fund balance but it also relied on that millage increase from last year, both of which are the additional funding that's being funneled towards your road plan. I think, and again, if I created the confusion, I'm sorry. I guess from my seat, I'm viewing a road plan not as 5 one-year road plans. I'm trying to look at it as we have a multi-year plan that yet 1 year may be this year. We have absolutely had a good year. I guess I would be hesitant to see a reduction because we had one good year. My recommendation would be wait till we're further along in the plan, do a more thorough evaluation at that plan to see if you can reduce or reallocate. But Justin's absolutely right. If what the council would prefer to do is see a millage that potentially goes up a little bit and potentially goes down a little bit every year, you know, that's an option you guys could take. I think that that variance in that millage creates a really hard position for council every year. But that's not the C. I mean, that's ultimately up to you all.
Josh?
So I have a question for Jane. We have an item later here on the agenda, which I'm really pleased to see. We talked about a meeting or two ago about getting that 44th Street section repaved. We got some bids to consider here. Is that amount for that included in what you presented with the current budget situation? Because I think that was originally a 26, 27 item, correct? That we moved,
It was actually scheduled to be 25, 26.
But instead of waiting till spring,
wait till
we're gonna
next
move
year.
it up
We're moving
until
it up.
hopefully this fall, if not sooner.
So it is part of the budget that we presented. We have no guarantee that we can pay for it in this year, that the project will be done in this year. There's no guarantee.
Okay, that amount that was, that 650,000 that was budgeted, that was included in the budget that was just presented.
Mhm.
Okay. What would, and last question, I guess, so we're at a projected 22% fund balance. What is 7% fund balance equal in dollars?
7%?
So if we're 7% above 22, or we're 7% above 15, which is our policy, and just roughly how much is 22% fund balance? Or what is 7% fund balance, like the excess above our policy? I'm just curious what that amount would be in dollars.
It's like 1.6 million, 1.4 million. So just very quickly, the general fund isn't carrying a fund balance specifically to buffer the road project. Every dollar that we levy of that additional money goes into the major and local streets fund, and it's split based on the projects that Charlie has slated for that next year. In addition to that, because even that isn't enough to do all of the streets, the general fund is kicking in more like it always has. So we're not limiting ourselves to that millage rate. We're putting in the millage that we said that we would, because that was the point of doing this, and then additional funding so that we don't have negative fund balance in those funds to complete our projects. Those funds aren't, for instance, it looks like we're gonna end with the reduction in the amount of money that we spent on local roads for this year, what the bids came in. It looks like the local road fund is gonna have roughly $430,000 at the end of the year in fund balance, which is very high, it's 30-some%. That doesn't mean we're gonna push more money there next year. All that means is that we have less funding that we need to push from the general fund into local streets to do $940,000 worth of projects. We don't have to push $940,000. We can push what is slated to go in there into the local streets project. The other can go into major. So that, by saying that it's for streets, we get that flexibility of which fund needs it the most, but we have committed to putting every additional mill that we raised into streets projects for the next 5 years, in addition to more general fund funding if necessary. If we can't cover those, we've committed to that. So if we were to keep this, if we were to keep the project static, means we're not gonna change how much we're spending, we're just gonna change how much revenue we get in to spend on that. If we were to change that by $500,000, the general fund at the end of the next fiscal year with projections would be at 10%. If we were to do only $250,000, the general fund would be at 13%.
And you're saying the following year, so after 26,
Yes.
27.
Yes, yes. We always keep our eye on the future. Because like Griffin said, we need to make sure that what we're doing is sustainable. So if you reduce that millage rate, that's fine, but there's going to be a hard conversation during next year's budget time because we're not going to be able to show you that we meet that 15% fund balance with either decision, a quarter or a half. I mean,
Are those transfers, I said I wasn't gonna say anything real quick. Are those transfers out of the general fund that you're talking about for next year, the next year budget? Are those rooted in what projection for 26, 27 for the capital improvement?
26, 27, the capital transfers out, is that what you're asking?
Sorry, what is the projection for the capital improvement expenditures for that?
The CIP.
The CIP,
For
yeah.
26, 27?
Is that based on $7.5 million capital improvement?
26, 27, on the CIP for roads, we have 6, and the bridges, so about $7 million.
Right, and that included the bridges as bridge replacement, right?
That includes
Because that's what's shown on
the
here.
2.5 million, no, yes, that's expenditures, we're gonna get 1.3. Well, that's what they're saying, I mean, I'll believe it when I see it, but we're in line for 1.1 million of the 2.5 million.
But these Wilson, Ivan Rest, Canal bridges, those were initially slated to be replacements.
Those
correct?
were, those ones, so again, this is another one I don't need to get in. The original bridge on Chicago Drive was gonna be a replacement. When we were able to get this grant and reallocate some of the $4 million number and add the other bridges, they were never gonna be replacements, they were gonna be rehabilitations. Replacements on here, candidly, was when Matt and I were putting this map together, we put replacement instead of rehabilitation, it's a typographical,
So this $7.5 million projection is based on these being rehabs?
yes, including the $500,000 rehab numbers that's in the CIP. That's probably in practice will ultimately come out a little bit high, but again, it's tough to know because it'll be 2 years from now.
Right, okay.
But yes, that's the map saying replacements, it's rehabs. Those other three were never gonna be replaced.
Okay.
That's typographical, and I'm sorry if that's creating some confusion here. So again, originally, if you look at like last year's CIP, it was a $4 million number for the Chicago Drive Bridge. That's when we thought we were gonna have to do a full replacement. We found out there's another rehab method we can do that's gonna get us the security we need there, and it's significantly less, closer to $2.5 million. We then were able to get a grant for a good chunk of that we are expecting to receive over $1 million too. Again, we'll wait until 26, 27 to ever realize that. But kind of to a comment you mentioned, one of the options at that point in time, we could say, instead of the 4 million, it's now down to 2.5, we have $1.5 million left. The recommendation I got from the Department of Public Works is we can use that $1.5 million to rehab 3 other bridges in our community that didn't originally make the cut for the 5-year plan. We could likely get one contractor, we could probably create the best value we can and set all those bridges up. But theoretically, you're right. Theoretically, we could go back and say we don't want to touch those other bridges, we're just gonna do the other one at 2.5 million. That's another option. But what staff in the Department of Public Works is suggesting is this is the opportunity, again, to create as much value as we can, sticking to that original budget number and now touch 4 bridges instead of just 1.
So this 7.49 million was originally higher when we had our budget last year.
It was gonna be $4.5 million to reconstruct the Chicago Drive Bridge.
And
And now we can rehab it for 1.5 million or whatever it's got going. So the reason I said let's go do the other bridges is we now have 3 out of our 4 bridges that have weight restrictions on them. They're not gonna get any better, they're scouring more and more every year. If you kick those down the road, roughly I figured 900,000 to do all 4 bridges, you're gonna be 9 million to do 2 of them. So I mean, that's why
The cost savings and doing
Yes,
it.
it
Yeah,
is.
But Justin,
appreciate
to your point, I think, I mean, if you look at the CIP, I mean, it was 4 million and now it's 2.5 in each of those. I mean, the total cost for bridge is still pretty much the same. It's just doing more projects. The wild card that'll come in 26, 27 is when we expect to get this grant. That's $1 million less dollars out of the taxpayer, well, it's still taxpayer dollars in some form.
Yes.
It's out of taxpayer dollars directly here. That's gonna be $1 million that at that point in time, there's gonna be a really good conversation about, again, reallocating or reducing a millage. I think there's a real possibility there. But we're happy to pull some more of this together. I guess I'll just, I mean, we'll see what we can try to pull together between now and next week for you all. I guess there was a motion, I'll let you guys finish through all of that. We're happy to do the best we can to prepare information so you guys can make an informed decision.
Jane, I think I got the information from you just in your comments that I'm looking for. I just want to make sure that I'm correct. So just generally, if the millage rate would be reduced by 0.5 and all the projects stay the same, our fund balance would be about 10% at the end of next year.
No, the
In-
second year.
Yeah, the end of
It
26,
would
27.
be, I can tell you what it would be at the end of next year. I think it's. Just a minute.
Well, when I say next year, yeah, I'm thinking, yeah.
So if we were to reduce by half a mil, our fund balance projected, remember, these are all just projections, we're doing our best, and I try to be very conservative, but, it shows that we would be about 18% at the end of this year, and that's why we dropped to 10.7% at the following year.
Okay.
Those costs aren't going down. And we still operate on a fixed income. I
And if-
mean, yes, we can up our millage to help cover costs of things, and we're lucky. And I pointed out in my presentation that we aren't at our cap. Many of our compatriots are at their cap. And so if they want to do road projects, they actually have to go to the taxpayer and ask for a specific dedicated millage to do road projects. We're lucky. We're not in that position yet. We've been very fortunate as an organization. I think that we had a great plan in place last year. We showed what we could do for 5 years if we were to get this millage. I think we can still accomplish all of that, but I think, you know, after looking at it for a year, to me, it's not enough data to make really great analytical decisions based on to lower or not to lower. That's especially with 1 week left of budget, when the entire budget has to be, you know, placed in the packet by Friday. I mean, I don't, you know, I don't know how else to help you, other than to give you the information that I have.
Other comments? Randy?
Yeah, excuse me, questions, comments, maybe somebody can help me out with questions too, who have some institutional history. We're in 24-25 now. In 23-24, how much under budget did we come in for the year? Because we always seem to have money left over, and we allocate spending so much.
In 23-24.
Yeah, where were we?
In 23-24, we had, I I don't have what we budgeted. We ended the year $750,000, a decrease to fund balance in 23-24.
What's the prediction for 24-25 this
The
year?
prediction for 24-25 is 2.2 million use of fund balance. Next year is 2 million of fund balance.
And that's all going to the road funds?
All the decrease of fund balance, no, most of it goes to the road funds, but not all of it. And that's what I think an important part of this is yes, if you look at the last few years, your budget to actual at the end of the year, the amount you pull out of the fund balance tends to be less than what the original budget was. But please don't mistake that of you're still not pulling from your fund balance at the end of the year. We have been gradually spending down the fund balance.
So how much of the fund balance then is 80% of the fund balance, 85% of the fund balance, 90% of the fund balance that we're spending down is going into roads? A rough percentage on that?
So, I mean, if you look at this paper that I handed
Yeah.
out, you can see, that for the transfer, we budgeted last year 2.075 million to go into the roads, which is what we committed, and that is $732,000 more than what the 1.5 mils generated. Now you're saying, oh, we came in under. Well, we did, but the general fund is still kicking in $730,000 over what the millage levied specifically for roads.
Your general fund minus what's being sent to the roads is also relying on fund balance, and it has for the last several years.
So question for our DPW director, with the exception of the bridges that we've been having issues with, do we still rely at what time, I believe going back one time, the Metro Council would do an evaluation of our local and minors?
Pacer ratings?
Yeah, do we still use that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I can get you.
And how much in the last year did we accomplish towards gaining on that? I mean, we did Redmill, we did Prairie, we did, a lot of streets.
Maybe about 8%. There's still a lot of red colors on the roads.
And this is the first year of the millage, and we haven't fixed those roads yet. So the Pacer ratings haven't changed for the first year of the dedicated millage. We haven't accomplished those roads yet.
So none of the roads we did last year were on the Pacer rating?
Yes. All our roads are on the Pacer rating.
Yeah, but you just said they weren't.
No, what I'm saying is for 24-25, the Pacer ratings that we showed you for the last year that we brought you, the only things that have been updated on those Pacer ratings are the road projects that we did in 23-24, which weren't supported by a millage, so they were less. So that's why he's saying we're still at 8%. Well, we should be able to start seeing over the next couple of years with the increased amount of money pushed into road maintenance, those Pacer ratings start to improve. But after 1 year, I mean, we haven't even pushed the additional money out yet. The roads are just being done now.
Any other comments, questions? We've got a motion and we've got a support. Randy?
If it would be easy if the money we were taking in wasn't drawing down some on our existing fund balance. Because if I was running a business with $11 million worth of revenue, it'd be really easy to find $233,000 or $466,000 or whatever it is. And that's the number here, what we're trying to dial down on is how much of this budget is worth borrowing against the future for, especially in light of the fact that we've been promised, road funding for so long of our capital, state capital, and we don't see any of that. So I don't know. I guess I'm still interested in, I would be interested in seeing some projections, some other, $25 a quarter, what that would look like, maybe. I don't know if there's any other wiggle room in this budget either yet, but. And like to JR, Councilman Vanderwall's comment, you do a good job, and all you guys have the advantage of working these budgets for year-round, 6 months, 3 months at a time. We get a huge information dump in 30 days. So that's where a lot of these questions come from.
May I say one more thing? When I started here, I remarked on your fund balance. I stood before you in my first budget meeting, and I remarked on your fund balance. And I remember saying to you, your fund balance is too high. And that's okay if you have a plan to spend it. You can have a high fund balance, but you have to have a plan to spend it. You do not want to take dollars from the taxpayers that you have absolutely no intention of using. When you take money from the taxpayer, you commit to that taxpayer that those dollars are going back into their city, back into creating a great place for them to live, work, and play. Otherwise, don't take the millage if you have no intention of using it. You have all done a fabulous job of allowing infrastructure improvements with that fund balance. Roads is the next piece of the puzzle. Water mains is the piece after that. We, as a governmental unit, are behind on our infrastructure. We just are. With everything that's happened, we just are. We're behind. And so what I'm saying to you is, I don't think that levying 1.5 mils for one more year is unreasonable. I think it's in the best interest of the city to give us a couple of years of metrics to see what that influx of tax dollars does for Paiser ratings, does for your first impression of people that live here, travel here, visit here. Your roads are your first impression for anyone that comes here. And so while I understand the optics of saying you're raising this, let's lower this, and I don't disagree, but we have places that needs to go. It needs to go. Not we want it to go. It needs to go. So that is the best I can do, is to tell you that I would be the first one to say to you, your millage rate is too high. You shouldn't be taking all this money in. You have nothing to spend it on. But that is not the case. So I feel like it is in the best interest of the city to leave that millage where it is for one more year, and then let's have a deeper discussion, starting with workshop number 1 in March, and say, here are the scenarios, here's where we are, here's what we're projecting. We can do it. I can bring 3 different budget scenarios next week to the next council meeting, and you can review them and decide. Charlie can go back and redo all of the tax paperwork to show 3 different scenarios, because it's not just a matter of me saying, here are the dollars. It's presenting all of the paperwork and the background stuff that goes along with it in order to be able to levy taxes, that we also have the hoops we have to jump through. And we can do all of that if that is what you want. I don't believe that that's in the best interest of the city. That is my professional opinion. You've done a great job of moving those dollars back into our infrastructure, pushing it back into the community. You all have them first, so do I.
Any other comments? Otherwise, we do have a motion and support. Marcy, would you call the roll on?
Councilmember North?
Can we review the motion again?
As I understand it, the motion was requesting finance director to do projections, scenarios, assuming a 0.25 mil reduction and a 0.5% reduction by the time of budget adoption.
Leaving the scheduled road maintenance the same.
Correct, yeah.
Is that it? Is that correct? Is the motion?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, Marcy, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Norhuck,
Yes.
Steenstra,
No.
Truist,
No.
Vanderwall,
Yes.
Gelderlos,
Yes.
Merringa,
Yes.
and Mayor Mas.
No. All right, looks like the motion passes.
We'll work on it. Thank you.
Good. Next item on the agenda, resolution 33, proposed resolution 3370, declaring an official intent to reimburse project expenditures with bonds. You wanna
Sure.
talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, we talked about this briefly at budget work session number 2. I think we're all aware by now that we are looking into bonding this next fiscal year for the funds to be able to move forward with significant local water system project improvements. As we are still a few steps away and a few conversations with you all away from formally starting that process, we are looking for you all to adopt an official reimbursement resolution. What this will do is give us the ability to reimburse ongoing work with potential future bond proceeds. It does not obligate the council to bond, but it would give you all the option and preserve the option to reimburse ourselves moving forward if we find that that is necessary. So the resolution was prepared by our bond counsel, Varnum, and I know that Dave can speak to it in more detail if you all have any questions.
Any questions on this proposed resolution? Oh, Randy?
So this gives us the option to bond for Wallace 31st Street in the past, rather than what we're doing now, correct?
It would give us the option to reimburse, costs, specifically the ones that Wallace and 31st that have not already taken place. We could only reimburse costs essentially from the date of this resolution and forward. So give us the ability to reimburse potentially a part of that project. The other one it could theoretically allow us to do is start acquiring inventory for the water meter replacement project at the same time or prior to us going through a bonding process. That would be necessary or would be very helpful because it's a lot of meters to acquire. We may not be able to get them all at the same amount of time, and to be able to get them all acquired and replaced in the fiscal year, we're gonna have to start really early, and the bonding process, as you all know, can take several months.
But this will ultimately affect that water rate, tick it up a little bit more, make it pretty insignificant, but it will raise that water bill.
The water rate that was contemplated in the rate study that was presented to you all contemplated this bond.
Okay.
So this wouldn't increase it from any of that. That bond was part of that proposed plan.
And I think this is clear, we're not taking any action on the bond.
Understood.
Okay.
And this starts the referendum clock ticking, or no?
No, but there is a time limit by which you have to proceed with the bonds in order to have them remain, if the bond funds remain eligible from a tax exempt perspective. And so this resolution, the bonds, as I understand it, it's a 60-day clock, basically, in order, you have to move forward with the project or bonding within 60 days. You can't adopt it and then not do the bonds for an extended period of time. It's like a 60-day clock.
But the 45-day referendum period, that's when you actually decide to issue the bond itself. That would be the next.
That would kick off with your formal notice of intent, which would likely be one of your next steps.
Questions for Griffin about this? Otherwise, is there a motion to adopt resolution number 3370, a resolution declaring official intent to reimburse project expenditures with bond proceeds?
So,
Motion?
Support.
And support. Any other comments, questions? Marcy, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Steenstra,
Yes.
Truce,
Yes.
Vanderwall,
Yes.
Gelderlos,
Yes.
Merringa,
Yes.
Norhuck,
Yes.
and Mayor Mas.
Yes. Next item is consent agenda, which is pretty long, but actually there's only, I believe, one purchase in there, and that is smoke detectors in the fire department, and it looks like a couple bids came in. One was substantially less than the other. We also have a number of reports, April reports from the police and the treasurer. Police was particularly interesting, I thought, with pictures and some interesting narrative. We also have minutes from the Environmental Sustainability Committee, Planning Commission, Library Board from April, and then DDA, their May meeting. Also, several proclamations. One is Police Week, which is happening right now. The Emergency Medical Services Week, which is the following week. And then the week after that is the Public Works Week. And like I said, the next item is the purchase order request for smoke detectors at the fire department. Chief, anything you want to say about that? You've got a memo in there, but.
Actually, it's Charlie's memo, but this is just, consider it the last thing in the long list of things we've spent the last 5 years fixing ills that occurred 25 years ago during the initial construction of the road.
Okay. So that is, the amount of that is $6,547. So approval of the consent agenda because of that purchase would be in the best interest of the city. So is there a motion to approve that consent agenda in the best interest of the city? Motion and support. Any other comments, questions? Marcy, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Truce,
Yes.
Vanderwall,
Yes.
Gelderlos,
Yes.
Merringa,
Yes.
Norhuck,
Yes.
Steenstra,
Yes.
and Mayor Mas.
Yes. City managers report. I'm interested in the first item because I think we texted a couple weeks ago. I had a call about this exact piece of road that looks like it's gonna get redone, so.
Yeah, this one is really exciting. I think we're all aware, of this stretch of 44th Street from Ivan Rest to the city boundary, is one of those in the worst condition in our community. The council, following the acceptance of the bid for the 2025 street overlay projects, requested that we go out to bid for this project and see if we could speed it up. We don't know if we'll be able to get it done by the end of the fiscal year we're currently in, but should city council move forward with one of these bids this evening, we are confident we'll be able to get it added to this construction season as opposed to needing to wait till next spring. So that's really exciting. We did also get another good bid. Specifically, Reith Riley, who's a really reputable company, was the low bidder, and we are recommending awarding Reith Riley the bid in the amount of $628,898.76.
Questions for Griffin? Otherwise, is there a motion to award the repaving contract to Reith Riley in the amount of $628,898.76 in the best interest of the city?
So moved.
Lots of support there, that's great. Motion, support, and support. Marcy, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Vanderwall,
Yes.
Gelderlos,
Yes.
Merringa,
Yes.
Norhuck,
Yes.
Steenstra,
Yes.
Truce,
Yes.
and Mayor Mas.
Yes.
The next item we have on the city manager's report is in regard to selecting a registered municipal advisor to help us move forward with the bond process we've been discussing. So there's a memo in the packet that I put together that requests to engage Benzinski & Co. As a registered municipal advisor should the city council decide to move forward with bonding for local water infrastructure projects. Although the city of Grandville has worked with PFM in the past, we are recommending Benzinski & Co. For this project because of their experience with the water rate study. They already have a good understanding of our water system, these upcoming projects, which will not only help with continuity, but it also helped us get a really competitive price because some of the work will not have to be redone because of what we've done. So. With that, I'm happy to speak to it more, but we are requesting authorization to enter into a municipal services agreement with Benzinski & Co.
So I noticed the list of recently fleet of fund issues, they've been busy. This is what they do.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. This is another firm like a PFM who we've worked with before. There's about 3 in the state that do a majority of the bonds. I mean, this company is a very reputable and experienced one.
Yeah, I noticed that. I mean, the total in just recently is just shy of $1 billion, so must be experts at this.
Well, and it would keep us with the same team
Yeah.
who did the water rate study. So again, I definitely think there's value in the experience and the continuity there for this specific project.
And it's a not to exceed amount of $29,850.
That's my understanding.
Questions for Griffin? If not, is there a motion to enter into the contract with Benzinski and Company in an amount not to exceed $29,850?
So,
Support.
Comments? Now, Marcy, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Gelderlos,
Yes.
Merringa,
Yes.
Norhuck,
Yes.
Steenstra,
Yes.
Truce,
Yes.
Vanderwall,
Yes.
and Mayor Mas.
Yes. Matt's gonna tell us about fee schedule updates.
Full of great news tonight.
Revenue for the city of Grandville.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. Griffin alluded to some of these earlier, as did Jane. What I provided in my memo is a list of proposed amendments to our fee schedule. I didn't list all the fees, I didn't list fees that we weren't proposing amending. Most of them are utility rated, they're ready to serve the commodity charges. I'm gonna hit a couple highlights for you. I've been working with the department heads for the last several months to do this. Again, we'll answer any questions that you may have. First, I want to draw your attention on under administration, especially event, non-city affiliated. Right now, we have a special activity permit that's related to sales only. So if you're selling Christmas trees, fireworks, you're having a tent sale, that's one. We haven't had this one before, and we're seeing much more of these, and it's costing the taxpayers a lot of money. So we see a lot of 5Ks, Fifth Third Riverbank Run, Kelvin Christian does one, I think the Y does one, and there's more, there's different activities. But many times they require, sometimes police escort, they need barricades and personnel from our DPW department. So we're proposing a $50 fee per day for that, plus they must cover the cost of the personnel and equipment used for that event. We will have an estimate for them when we approve the permit, and then we'll invoice them after the event. We will allow them to come before the council to appeal either the full or partial amount of the amount we're invoicing. The other one, right below that, is the tax abatements. It's a different format than what's been on our fee schedule. The current fee schedule identifies establishing a district and the application for a district. It's kind of confusing. So we're moving forward with what breaks it down to the 3 really economic development tools that we rarely use. It's the commercial rehab district, the industrial facilities tax abatement. You really don't see those anymore, but they're still out there, as well as the brownfield redevelopment. The application fee would be $500 for each one of those. Griffin touched briefly on the escrow policy that we introduced here a few meetings ago. Hoping to see, that'll be on next week's agenda. The escrow policy will come into play with these economic development tools. What we're finding is there's a lot of attorney fees, there's engineering fees, and even planning fees wrapped into some of these. And again, we don't want our taxpayers subsidizing these types of applications. The developers involved should be paying these fees. And they will do that with the escrow fees. Similar note, under the planning and zoning, same thing, and I think I broke down some site plans that have been just previously approved in the last few months at the Planning Commission. You know, the site plan fee currently is $350. We're proposing to increase that to $500, but also use the escrow policy for that. One of the site plans was, I think, $4,100 that the city spent reviewing it, engineering, legal cost. Again, we don't want our taxpayers paying for that. So, those are the highlights. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have for me, or the departments may also be able to help.
While you guys are looking those over, again, our intent with updating the fee schedule is that this will be an annual process as part of our budget process. I think that's what you all were used to, and we maybe got away from it for a few years, but, you know, your fees, that are used to offset the costs of providing some of the services, are a big part of informing our budget. So that's really why we're seeing all these things coming right now at this same time, thinking about utility rates, fee schedule, budget, escrow policy. It's because they really all do play into each other. So very similar to the escrow policy from a month or so ago. We're just looking for any questions or feedback or major concerns you all have. No actions needed right now. We'll bring it all back next meeting for consideration. And we're happy to talk over the next week too, if you want to sit down and have specific conversations.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a 10,000-foot overview, you know, some of these policies haven't been looked at since 1987.
Yes.
And the most recent one was from 2 years ago. Is this gonna be something you're gonna do annually? Or you're
Yes.
gonna, like, maybe go to a couple years?
Ideally, we'd want to do this annually throughout the budget process. That the department had to start this in December. You know, we have our first meeting with council in March. During the leadership transition last year, I think it got lost, but we want to make sure this is reviewed. Doesn't mean you have to approve new changes every year, but if we want to propose any new changes, now's the time to do it.
And I think that's the key part right there, JR. That's a good question. Our goal would be to review it every year. I don't think that necessarily means we're gonna have this many changes every year. Actually, I would be really surprised if we would have this many changes every year. I would expect moving forward, there may be a handful, but our goal would be to include this in as one of the many items we take a look at here in budget.
That's fair. I'm surprised that the two from 1987 have made it this long.
There's even a couple rollbacks in there too. Again, when we collect a fee, it's to provide a service. That's the intent of the fees, to cover the cost of our service. So no more, no less than that. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. The last item I have on here for you all this evening is another one that we're not seeking any action tonight, but I just wanted to bring it before you all and get a little bit of input. So just circling back to our January 6th strategic planning workshop, I think shortly after that in February, we brought a summary report of kind of the results and that priority list. I just wanted to follow up with you all that this has been a spreadsheet that I've been keeping and putting together since then, and intend to bring something like this to you all quarterly as we get into this new fiscal year, just so you all can kind of stay up to date on where we're at in terms of advancing these priorities. Likely it'll just be something we include in the packet, and then if you all would like to discuss more, we can. But I just wanted to make sure you all saw this and knew that, you know, these are things we're thinking about. These are projects, you know, we're advancing. I like to kind of use the stoplight method, which is really no more complicated than you would think. Green is, it's moving, it's in a good place, it's going, progress is being made. Yellow is something's happened, it's maybe on hold, maybe it's moving really slow, and red tends to mean you're either off the tracks, it hasn't started yet, nothing's really happening there. But I just wanted to bring this to you all and give you a chance to take a look at it. If there was any feedback you had, I would definitely appreciate it. But otherwise, just really more wanted you to know that in a form somewhat like this is how I intend to kind of bring you updates on your priorities over the year. And then hopefully we will annually, you know, do some kind of strategic planning like we do to update that list and kind of evolve it from there. But are there any questions about anything on here right now I can answer? Otherwise, please let me know if this doesn't make sense, or if there's a different type of way you'd like to see this.
No, I like it. I mean, it kind of brings it to the front burner again and just refreshes our memory and so.
Appreciate it. Yeah, and as we discussed, I mean, anytime there's a list and, you know, as we do this more or less, things will be added, things will go back. I mean, I really kind of encourage you to focus on kind of the top 10, top 15. Those are the ones where, you know, you can see more of those have actual dollar numbers tied to them. Some of them on the list have to happen regardless. That's why maybe some a little bit lower on the list, you're like, why does that one seem so much more relevant? But, you know, this is something we are using regularly to kind of inform our time allocation, decision making, and, you know, obviously we referenced it a handful of times during the budget process as well.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else?
Those are the updates I have for this evening. I appreciate the conversation about the budget. We are happy to, you know, work through some of those. I know we're getting really close to the finish line, so excited to get something in place that we can make some exciting things happen about next year. But if there are any other questions or updates you all are looking for, I'm happy to do the best I can.
Questions for Griffin? No, let's go to council member comments, and Jared, let's start with you.
Nothing for me tonight.
All right. Paul?
Nothing more to add, thanks.
Thanks for a great report, Pete and Josh, and thanks for bringing that author in for the elementary kids again. That's a huge hit with kids. So really appreciate all you guys do. Thanks. And sticking out 2 hours
Yeah. Justin?
Definitely echo that. Thank you for the report and all of your work. We're very thankful for the partnership that we have with the library and all the good work that you do. And Josh, you didn't highlight the special author that you were able to secure for the author talk at Godwin Heights because of the changing circumstances and everything. But John Green, which I happen to really enjoy, and he used a lot of his material in my classes when I taught social studies. So he's wonderful. So that's a really big deal for us to be able to get him. So good work. I just want to thank the department heads and the finance director and Griffin. I know that my request tonight is going to add additional work for you, and I am sorry for that part, but I take very seriously the responsibility to have as much information in front of me as possible to make the decisions that we have to make. Like Randy said, we have to do this in a very condensed timeline. And in my defense, I did try to make these points, previously, so that it would not be something that I spurred on you at the last minute. But I greatly appreciate that, providing that information. And then the last thing I had was we voted on a proclamation for Police Week, and I think particularly on the heels of a contentious trial in a nearby community, I just wanted to reaffirm my appreciation to the police department for all of your work. And as I told Chief Steer when he was still here, coming from the field of education, I know what it's like to have people make assumptions about you and your job and all of these things and the criticisms, but we're very grateful for the police that we have in our community and the great work that we do. So thank you for that.
Josh?
Yeah, I would echo those comments, and then just also add, I appreciate the work that was done to move the 44th Street paving project up. I know I brought that up a meeting or two ago, and, requested to see if we could open up bids for that and get that on our schedule for this year for construction. Made it happen. Really appreciate it. I think a lot of people in town will really appreciate getting that done in 2025 instead of in 2026, so thank you so much.
Randy?
Yeah, thought we had a lot of good conversation tonight. Just a request, maybe could you email us, Charlie, all of us, the most recent Pacer pavement report that we have, so we can all get out and drive it through the roads and get a better feel, no pun intended, of what's going on. Other than that, I'm just gonna say I'm just really, really happy that we have no tax appeals tonight or no pending litigation. That's it.
I am happy as well. Just a couple things. Just want to, I think you all got an invitation to the event on Saturday at the vacant lot on Sioux Court and South Big Spring. Dinner is at 5:30, and so if you would like to come early, you can help out. Otherwise, you can just show up at 5:30, and some educational speakers and supper and so on. Also, this week, I'll be finishing up one of the most fun things that I do every year, and that is talk to a lot of second graders. I am amazed how many second graders are in Grandville Public Schools. So I think we've got 6 more classes coming in this week, so that's always fun. Marcy has got a really cool gift, a small gift for all the kids and certificates, and they really like that. So that's a lot of fun. So department heads, anybody who's working in City Hall, Teresa, I know almost all of you have been pulled in at one time or another, like, hey, there's the person, there's Teresa, and she's the one who plans all the fun parties. But you know, it's very hard to compete with Chief May and all the shiny equipment because the kids go over there too. So anyway, a lot of fun, and it's, yeah, one of the super fun things that I do. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion and support. All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
And the opposition, please say no. Great. Have a good evening, everybody.